Well, greetings and salutations, one and all, to part two of our career discography breakdown of the Beatles, right here on Career Retrospectives. I am joined by my two incredible good friends, Kyle and Mike. What's going on, guys?
Hey guys.
Ooh, no.
So we're back once again, as the title of this podcast suggests, alludes to, and whatever you want to call it. Tonight we're breaking down part two, the second half of the Beatles catalog, right here on Career Retrospectives for a career discography breakdown. I know Mike likes to pick me about that word, but yes, a career
Yeah, and
discography.
in honor of that, I'm taking my hat off and showing my bald head today as an honor to your discography pronunciation. So,
Is that
yeah,
two
you're welcome.
firsts for the show? The first two
Yeah,
and the first Mike without a hat?
yeah,
Wow.
that's it. Hey, you gotta throw it around sometime, mix it up.
Exactly. So, but yeah, so let's get right into it, shall we? Let's jump over to so we last week was the end of part one was Rubber Soul. So the album right after Rubber Soul was Revolver in 1966. Let's jump how do we do this? I forget, I completely forgot. Did we talk about
You
the
went
album at all, or
first last time.
we did the track listing, right? We did the
Yeah,
album
yeah.
first.
You went first last time and you just talked about the album.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. Oh, I'm drawing a blank for all of a sudden. Yeah. So, Revolver. It's funny coming off of Rubber Soul, which was to me an album that really solidified how albums can become albums. And the Beatles led the forefront of that. You know, this was kind of like they're doubling down of like we're gonna try it. We're gonna try doing another album instead of just a collection of songs, like a couple hit singles and a couple covers. We're gonna do a complete statement album again, but this time it was with Revolver, and some of the songs on here were just so like much more experimental than Rubber Soul, in my opinion. Much more, very, very much so, like with string incorporations, with different, lyrical storytellings and stuff like that. Like Eleanor Rigby's on here, Yellow Submarine is on here. Tomorrow Never Knows, got to Get You Into My Life is on here. So there's a bunch of really, really great songs off of most of their catalog on this record. Like Taxman, Love You Too, like George Harrison penned single in there. Really good stuff. So, I mean, this is kind of where the Beatles took off as far as a psychedelica band. This is like their, I mean, and then when we get down to Sergeant Pepper in a minute, Sergeant Pepper kind of like really hammered that in the forefront of everyone's mind. Like, wow, that's Sergeant Pepper. Let me get down to my track listing really quick here. So that's my background on Revolver. Let me go to the track listing for a sec. Um, give me 1 second. So the track listing is as follows: The Taxman, Eleanor Rigby, I'm Only Sleeping, Love You Too, Here, There, and Everywhere, Yellow Submarine, and She Said, She Said. That was side one. Side two goes Good Day Sunshine and Your Bird Can Sing for No One. Dr. Robert, I Want to Tell You, Got to Get You Into My Life, and Tomorrow Never Knows. So going into this as an album, if you've never heard the Beatles before, first and foremost, get on it. You should check it out first. Check them out first and foremost. But definitely, this I would say that if I was saying to someone, I would say to someone, listen to Rubber Soul first, and then go to this one after that. That's me personally, because my standout tracks in here just are like some of the songs I've heard live by Paul McCartney live. And he sung a couple of these live. He sung actually Eleanor Rigby live. That's one of my standout tracks. Excuse me, Yellow Submarine for whatever reason just always makes me smile. It just makes me like get a little like not giddy, but just like, oh, that's a charming one. God to Get You Into My Life is always a fun track to go back to all the time actually. And also Good Day Sunshine, man, that's just a great song to listen to, and all these songs are just under 3 minutes, except for like Tomorrow Never Knows is actually at 3 minutes exactly. So. And so is Love You Too, and so is I'm Only Sleeping. But listening to Revolver, this is when you start to hear different sort of sounds, different sort of experimentations, different sort of like George Harrison was very much into like like the Middle Eastern sound. Like you listen to stuff like Love You Too, or you listen to something like Tomorrow Never Knows, or no, sorry, not Tomorrow Never Knows. Love You Too, and I'm sorry, Taxman, that's one. Like you can definitely hear like George Harrison's influence of like here's the George Harrison songs, here's the John Lennon songs, you can definitely hear like them branching off into what they would eventually want to do as far as their solo careers. Like I think it started here, truthfully, in my opinion. The McCartney direction went this way, like as far as like sounds wise, and then it went into like what I'm trying to say is George Harrison, like especially George Harrison, in my opinion. He was just like his style, his instrumentations on this album really shine a lot more than I thought they did, more than when I originally heard them. If you know what I mean, it was very like it's so we only have so much time, but like I just want to say that this is one of my favorite records of them. As I said, my standard tracks are Taxman, Eleanor Rigby, Love You Too, Yellow Submarine, Good Day Sunshine, Got to Get You Into My Life, and Tomorrow Never Knows. Just a bunch of really just solid tracks you can listen to and just really get to know like what the Beatles were like in 1966. That's me personally. So I'm gonna let I'm gonna give my rating where it is now, right?
Yep.
Okay. So my rating is I'm gonna put Revolver because again, for those who have listened to us any period of time, we're doing a album ranking as well. Revolver for me is gonna sit at number 4 for me on the Beatles calendar, and Kyle's keeping track of that. So when it comes to the end of the show, we'll read off everything there. But yeah, to me, Revolver sits at number 4 for me as a Beatles album. Just because the experimentation that expanded off of Rubber Soul and went into this album, it really a lot. I mean, did all of it hold up to date? Some of it is a little like dated, of course. Like you listen to like "Love You Too," like that opening chord, it gets you. But the rest of it is like, like it's. I could say so much right now. Forgive me, I'm going off of my tangents, but yeah, like it's a very unique album of its own, and where the Beatles started to experiment on even more than they did with Rubber Soul. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. Um, Mike, talk to me.
Yeah,
Revolver.
so it's interesting as we go through all the albums. I'm starting to learn the parts of the Beatles that I liked. The fact that a lot of the songs that I love from them were released as singles, not on an actual album as part of a thematic kind of story. But the ones that I really liked were kind of released as singles. Hey Jude, um, you know, Penny Lane, all the kind of classic songs that I really enjoyed. And that like as a full album, I definitely found a lot of their experimental stuff where it wasn't necessarily one of their hit songs, but it was like, hey, we're gonna do some weird stuff. I find myself not liking that as much, and I'm not your quintessential Beatles fan in the sense of liking their albums as a whole piece, as an expression. I'm more so like something that sticks in my head and touches me. And I didn't find too much here that touched me on Revolver. It might be blasphemous to speak such words. But yeah, this was. I don't like the experimental side of the Beatles. If they do experiment, then there has to be something within that experimentation that kind of hits a chord. So yeah, on Revolver, I mean Taxman, it was okay. It just reminded me of Batman, to be honest with you. And I just felt like there was some stuff here and there. I'm not a big fan of like when they break out the like, the Indian kind of like like
Yeah.
the Buddhist kind of stuff. I'm not a fan of like some of just the kind of instrumentation they had on this album. I prefer like the hokey Beatles from the beginning, or like the memorable Beatles from like in the mid to the end of their career. But this is the kind of area that I felt like what they did for music far outweighs the fact that this album doesn't really sit with me well. What they did for music far is more important, and I appreciate that. And that's why I appreciate the album. But for me, it's 10 on my list, so it's pretty low. I know there's probably a lot of people over there like ready to take me and beat me in the streets, which by all means, please teach
Mike can
me
take you on.
why I should like. Yeah, take me on. But what I'm trying to say is, as an album, not something I can listen to and find a lot, but as what it did for music, a far more appreciative, like, uh, how it influenced and people took what they learned from this album and actually applied to songs that I really love. So I'm grateful, appreciative of that. But yeah, for me, it's just that it's 10 out of the ranking for the Beatles catalog.
Okay. And is that all you got?
That's all I got, man. I'm bing bang boom. I'm a straight shooter, and that's how we go.
Well, Mike's all about the Bing Bang Boom tonight. And
Bing
Kyle, what do
bang
you got?
boom.
Yeah, what do you got? Kyle, what do you got for a Revolver?
I believe it or not, I agree with Mike on just about every single one of
Hey.
his points here, other than the actual ranking in and of itself. Yes, I mean this is kind of where they started to, you could argue Rubber Soul is where they started to experiment, but this is really where the psychedelics really hit pretty hard in the experimentation, and not too well. My favorite songs from this one are the ones that I think sound more like those, as Mike said, like the hokey Beatles from earlier in their career, like Taxman, Eleanor Rigby, and Your Bird Can Sing. Those are my top three. But I mean, Yellow Submarine, classic song. I'm a sucker for the Ringo songs. And also, Good Day Sunshine is such a good time. It's such a feel good, fun song. Really love that one. But then there's a lot of, and this might be a little blasphemous to say, a lot of garbage on here. That run of three songs from I'm Only Sleeping, Love You Too, and Here, There, and Everywhere is atrocious. I'm sorry. I hated every one of these. Getting through this part of the album was rough, especially after Taxman and Eleanor Rigby. I was like, what just happened? I was like, my hopes were up here, and now you're just like plummeted. Some of my least favorite songs right there. Also, Tomorrow Never Knows, such a stupid, pretentious sounding song. Let's just throw that out there. This is the kind of John Lennon that I can't stand. And here it is on full display. But also completely agree with Mike. I've never been a fan of like the incorporating of like the more Indian instrumentation, like the sitar in there. Like, not a fan.
And
Never
also, I
been a
forgot to
big fan.
mention, Yellow Submarine did not hold up for me as I remember when I was a kid and it would come on the radio. I remember I would tell my mom, like, this is such a fun song because it's like a sing-along song like kids would sing.
Yep.
But then as I began to listen to it again, I just literally went like, why did I like this? I really said that to myself, and I was just like, it's gimmicky, and it's like I can't not think of the Beatles without thinking this, which I think is a genius thing. Like if you're able to really cement yourself with a specific song and a specific sound, it's pretty cool. But overall, it's just something I never wanted to really like re-listen to once I listened to it from the days.
I mean, that's totally fair. It's 100% just a gimmicky song, and I think it works. I think it's still fun. Definitely doesn't hold up, as much. It's very repetitive, but it's short enough. I mean, so for me, taking all that into account, the highs are pretty high on this one. And I, like Mike said, I appreciate what this did for music moving forward. I don't think it's the best experimental Beatles album by any stretch. This goes at number 7 for me, so pretty much right in between your guys' rankings.
All righty. You heard it here first, ladies and germs. Moving on to what I believe is a damn near perfect album. To their next album, which is called Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Try saying that 25 times fast, right? Let's be real. No, but this is where it's funny. I remember when this album turned 50 in 2017. I actually, well, how to explain this? I listened to, because 2017 was also the year I saw Paul McCartney live in concert, back then for the first time. So I was going through like a Beatles phase, whatever. I'm out of high school, I'm doing whatever. And it's funny. I did a lot of research on this album. There were FM radio stations that played this album from start to finish when it first came out for the first 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 days of when it first came out. I don't know if anyone ever knew that, but that actually is true. And because if you look at the time period, like there was like it was like I forget when it was like 1966 was Revolver. Their next album was Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, like almost a year later. So there was definitely like how the world was watching for what the Beatles were going to do next, and what they made was truly a work of incredible art, in my opinion. Of course. There are some things that I liked about this record. There's some things I did not like about this record, but I'm going to get into all of it in a moment. But yeah, just want to get that background. But actually, that is true though. That there were FM, like regular radio stations, that would play nothing but this album for the first 3 or 4 days it was released. So put that in mind for a sec. You want to listen to a whole album on the radio for because the demand was just so high to hear just this one album. It's almost but like Taylor Swift is kind of doing that today, almost in a sense. But yeah, so the close we might never hear those words again, but let's just put it that way. Let me go down to the track listing for a sec for Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. I was listening to this again on the way home today from work, just to refresh my memory once again, as always. But yeah, man, you gotta. This is just a splurge of just great song after great song. The title track, yes. Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is a great song, and the very fact that they coupled it in the recording process too with a little help from my friends, where McCartney's the lead vocal here, and then it segues right into with a little help from my friends. I love that. I still love. You can't listen to one without the other, in my opinion. You can't listen to this song without listening to that song back to back. That's just how I personally interpret it. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Man, oh man. You want to talk about LSD? LSD, Lucy Sky Diamonds. There you go. It sounds like you're a trip on acid. There you go. So, but and then we get into some other tracks that are still my favorite. So some of the best. So some of my favorite songs are just off this record in general. But Getting Better. It's just a quick, fun song. Fixing a Hole. It's like this and the Beatles like had like songs that you couldn't really identify the sounds that they were making. I mean, they started that with a Revolver, but then they like Fixing a Hole. I don't know what that for opening sound is on that record. It's incredible. She's Leaving Home. Great harp introduction. It's a really nice story of the ballad. It's the dueling vocals between Lennon and McCartney were just great. And then we get to my least favorite song on the record that I've heard live twice. Being for the benefit of Mr. Kite. Yes, you heard that right. I've seen that song live twice. Paul McCartney, if you're ever going to listen to us, don't ever play this song again. No one needs to hear this one song live ever again. Just saying. It's a good song. It's not a great song. It's very trippy. The ending of it is like spliced sounds together. And it's very like strange. I don't know why you play it live, but that's me. Side two opens with Within You, Without You. A George Harrison track again, like that Indian satire sound. It's the longest, one of the longest songs on the record, but it's not bad. It's actually I like it, but it's like I don't go back to it as often as I used to. When I'm 64 is just a great song. Just like I feel like it's played at weddings a lot. Truthfully, I feel like it's like a good one to play. Like Will You Still Need Me? Will You Still Feed Me? When I'm 64, that's a good wedding song. Not like as a slow dance song, which is like as a fun song to play at a wedding. Lovely Rita, just a great track there. Just about like just Paul McCartney being Paul McCartney in the Beatles, nothing better. Good Morning, great song. And then again, you want to talk about segueing songs together, like weaving them together. You had Good Morning into the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band reprise, which I did hear that live too. I heard that live in 2017, and that was great. And then actually, I did hear this is my fourth favorite song of all time, gents. A Day in the Life by the Beatles is my fourth favorite song of all time. I love this song. It is a masterpiece, and it's a great closer to the perfect closer to a near perfect album, in my opinion. It's hard to argue that last E chord on the three pianos that they did for the ending of The Day in the Life is just fantastic. I love it. It's a great, great, great song, and it's got some hidden meanings in it as well. Truthfully, it's got like the 4,000 holes in Blackburn, Lancashire. That's 4,000 assholes in Blackburn, Lancashire. That's John Lennon being John Lennon. Not kidding when I say that either. But yeah, like I can go off. There's so much to say about this record. Like I get high with a little help from my friends. Listen, Sky Diamonds. There are some really just all around great songs on this album. And this is why this might come as a surprise, gents. This is my number one. This is my number
Whoa.
one. Yes, I say.
Damn, dude.
I know, big words by the J Man here. J Man is throwing some big words.
Damn, bro.
Yeah, exactly, Mike. Yeah, this is my number one of the Beatles. Just an all around incredible trip. It's really a concept album at its finest, truthfully, and I could not be any happier. It's my number one Beatles album by far on my list. But I know some people are like, well, how could it's good? It's a cop out. Well, can it be though? I don't know. No, but I can say so much more about this, but I'm very curious to see what Mike has to say about this. About Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. What do you got, Mike?
Well, yeah. So, once again, I firmly believe no one really ever figures out how to, Kyle, me, we've all had this conversation about finding a good mixture, a good balance. And I feel like in the very beginning, like Rubber Soul, Revolver, that balance was off, in my opinion, of like how to rein in the psychedelics and figure out a way to do an album that kind of brings justice to one side, but then doesn't kind of like trample the other. So I actually really enjoyed this album. It's actually one of those albums that where it does have some low points on it, with some kind of stuff. There's some fun, hokey kind of, corny stuff. Like the Beatles always took that opportunity to do strange things on these kinds of songs in order to kind of mix in a lot of different elements, like they really do a bunch of different kind of different little kinds of things on it. If you want to go to the track listing, call me.
Here we go. We're taking a look at the track listing.
There it is, track listing. But yeah, opens with that kind of classic feel. Great song with a little help from my friends. I do enjoy the vocals of Ringo giving that kind of dynamic to the usual. Great song. You hit up with Lucy and the Sky Diamonds, another great song. And I even enjoyed the kind of corny, weird stuff going on in the next 3-song run, getting better, fixing a hole. Those are like kind of that weird little area there. Happy kind of feeling stuff. She's Leaving Home, a great song. Has such a sad, tragic feel to it. I enjoy kind of stuff like that in music. I like the sad, tragic feeling of music, but I just kind of get the benefit for that, but not the benefit of Mr. Kite. That's for sure. I agree with you there. Meh, could do without it. Then you got some weird stuff here too, but then, it kind of rounds out with some cool songs here. Day in the Life, another great highlight song. So it's got a lot of great things going on. It's got a lot of quintessential classic Beatles feel to it. Definitely stylistically, artistically, the whole 9 yards, and the satire or the sitar that they were doing is definitely one of those things that I definitely can never get into. So saying all that, this is number 5. Yeah, and it
Wow.
definitely I think it in itself has a lot of corny kind of weirdo kind of stuff on that like the beginning of the second half, but I enjoy it, and it kind of gives it a certain characteristic. The beginning is a strong beginning, and got a good song at the end, and it's got some mixture in between. So just for importance alone as well, I try not to rule that in as like a thing, but I did enjoy this album, and it's got some interesting things going on. So yeah, 5 out of 5 in the rank.
5 out of the rank. You heard it here first. This is Mike's 5th favorite Beatles album. Get ready to get the pitchforks going, guys. I'm just kidding.
Yes, I think Kyle's going to go ahead and dash that whole thing, but we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see.
Kyle, what do you got?
I love this album. This
Oh,
is an absolutely incredible album from front to back, with one, maybe 2 exceptions on that rule. I mean, that Sergeant Pepper's, and with a little help from my friends, package deal of the song, like JT said, you can't listen to one without the other. Absolute classic. Love the transition from McCartney's vocals to Ringo's vocals on between the two songs there. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, probably their best trippy experimental psychedelic song in my opinion. And then yeah, like Mike said, there's some corny stuff on here. You know, Getting Better, Fixing a Hole, but it works. You know, it's fun. It works. What I really love about this album is I feel like this is more, at least vocally, has more of a McCartney presence than it does a John Lennon presence, which I really appreciate. Uh, being for the benefit of Mr. Kite, I don't seem to hate it as much as you guys do. I don't care for it. I don't generally go back to it, but it doesn't bother me in context of the album. That cannot be said for Within You, Without You, which I will stand my ground that this is the worst thing that the Beatles have ever put on recording. I can't stand this song. And this is one thing that starting with mostly Revolver onwards, but a little bit before that, I've learned I just really don't like the George Harrison songs. With the exception of one or two that we'll get to later, I can't stand the sitar, the Indian vibe. Don't like it at all. Could never get into it. For those people that like it and like that side of them, cool. Is it cool that they tried experimenting and doing something that really no one else was doing? Yeah. Just really falls flat for me. I feel like it's the one song that I don't think fits the context of the album. Like Mike, you were saying how they struck like a more of a balance here. Completely agree until it gets to this song, and I feel like I'm just thrown out of the rest of the album. But then it goes right into When I'm 64, which is one of my favorite Beatles songs. It's such a nice song, very well written, very well performed. And then from there, the album just keeps going. I mean, it's a great end with A Day in the Life. So I mean, this is my number one. This is my number one as well.
Whoa.
It's I think the closest the Beatles have ever gotten to a flawless album. I think it would have been extremely flawless without Within You, Without You, and maybe being for the benefit of Mr. Kite, you could take or leave. But yeah, the closest they've ever gotten, and I'll say for the Beatles, pretty good because, like Mike was saying, by doing this discography breakdown, I kind of learned that I'm not a big fan of listening to full albums by the Beatles. They were more of a hits band than anything. And I think a lot of that comes down to, like we talked about last week, just the sheer amount of songs that they were putting out and how quickly they were pushing them all out. But I think with this one, they hit gold, number one.
I'm with you on that though. Like I more and more as I listen to music, I'm just like getting through a whole album, you realize how diverse and like you know, every single song tended to have a different thing going on with like marching bands or, you know, sitars or, you know, weird like going off into different directions. But like where I respect that, it also takes me out of consistency with the songwriting where like you use it, you're using songwriting to capture your audience's heart. But when you do a lot of psychedelic off, you know, going off road, you got to be able to bring that back into a memorable song. You know what I'm trying to say? And a lot of the times they went out and they never came back in. They went out to space and weren't able to rear that, like, you know, pull that back in to really capture something. The songs where they didn't do that are iconic and live on. And there are some psychedelic off-road kind of stuff, you know, Lucy in the Sky Diamonds or Strawberry Fields or things like that. But like those had memorable melodies and hooks to them. Whereas a lot of the off-roading, when it comes to stuff that doesn't have any memorable, it's very progressive, it's very experimental, but it's doing it for the sake of it, not necessarily how can I make this into something that's really going to touch your soul musically and memorably, you know.
All right, you heard it here first. That's our ranking so far for Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Let's jump over to their next album, which was later that year in '67 as well. It was December. So the U.S. release was in November, but in the UK it was December of 1967. We're going to talk about Magical Mystery Tour. Woo! One of my favorites. I will say that. The more I think about this record, the more I think about how, yeah, I wouldn't call it a Sergeant Pepper Part 2 kind of thing. I feel like some people might consider, oh well, they're still in like their weird trippy faces. John Lennon's the Walrus, all that crap, right? I would not, I wouldn't go as to say that. I will say this though. I would say that some of my favorite Beatles songs, period, are on this album too, like just in general. Um, and like just there's so much I can say about this album too. But I'm gonna just go down to the track listing right now, anyways. There are some great. Oh, that's the double EP. Hold on 1 second. There we go. There we go. All right, cool. So on the LP, it goes like this. And if I need to go grab my vinyl just in case, because for the track listing I will. But other than that, we're good because I have the vinyl right over there as we're recording this, just in case. No, but Magical Mystery Tour, Fool on the Hill, Flying, instrumental track, Blue Jay Way, Your Mother Should Know, and I Am the Walrus. Then side 2, which was Hello Goodbye, Strawberry Fields Forever, Penny Lane, Baby You're a Rich Man, and All You Need Is Love. Let me tell you right up front. So I mentioned this from the get-go of the start of this album. Some of my favorite Beatles songs in general are on this album, such as, believe it or not, yes, Cop Out, title track, Magical Mystery Tour is on that list. I know, shame on my part. I'm such a title track sucker. It's terrible. Thankfully, there's not one for Abbey Road. But no, Magical Mystery Tour is a great opening song. The moment you hear those horns kick in, you're like, all right, we're going on a trip down the Magical Mystery Tour. Huzzah! That's all it really is. Fool on the Hill, it's kind of grown on me a little bit. I mean, I didn't see McCartney play it live, but I've seen clips online of him playing it live. It's not a bad song, good song overall. The instrumental Flying, I think, is actually a very cool instrumental, truthfully. I like it a lot. Blue Jay Way by George Harrison. And it's funny. Your Mother Should Know is kind of just it's a good track. It's kind of there. I Am the Walrus. It's funny when I was first listening to this because I as I mentioned from the get-go, I do have this on vinyl. I have an original pressing of it. But I Am the Walrus, I keep my turntable at a certain volume, and hearing John Lennon scream "I am the Walrus," it just really gets to me after a while. And I'm like, I don't really want to deal with John Lennon screaming "I am the Walrus," cuckoo choo. Like, if I'm being honest, it's not a bad song nonetheless. It's a very good song. It's an iconic song of his. But it's very like a little more trippy, a little more on the trippier side of things. But then you get to, I would actually say this album is actually backloaded more than anything else. With Hello Goodbye, you say yes, I say it's so catchy, it's so simple. I really enjoy that song a lot more than I did before. Strawberry Fields Forever, great song. In general, just a fantastic song. I actually, true story. I was actually at the real Strawberry Fields in New York City recently. Just paying my respects to John Lennon. I was there this past weekend. So, you can go check out our Super Review Show Instagram feed for that. There you go. Penny Lane, great song. It's just catchy, fun. A lot more fun. Like some psychedelic, but much more fun on this record than anything else. Like you listen to like Penny Lane or Hello Goodbye or or even like Magical Mystery Tour. Like there's just a lot more like fun tracks, I guess you could say, on this record. And there's something I do enjoy about that. But this is an album and not just a couple of songs here and there. But and mind you, All You Need Is Love. It's funny. It's arguably one of the greatest songs of all time. Arguably, I mean, there's so many songs you could pick from, but I would say that it's in the top like by 15 or so, in my opinion, top 20. But All You Need Is Love is just a great song. I heard it live on New Year's Eve actually this year. I went to a concert New Year's Eve. I saw Billy Joel live, and he actually performed the song live. And I said, it hit me more than it did. It hit me after the fact, like he played All You Need Is Love, and then, and really, that if McCartney was the one's asked, and I think in the '80s, I think he was asking. He said, "What's the Beatles' message to the world?" And he said, "All you need is love." And that song kind of got misinterpreted as like, "Oh, it's like the it's the '60s. All you need is love, man. Like psychedelics, fun, man." No, but really, what they're saying is all you need is love. All you need is love, and love is all you need, guys. Just saying, love is all you need. So, that's a great closer to a really, really just a great album overall. I really do enjoy this album a lot more than I thought I did. However, it sits at number 5 for me. That's not trying to bag on it, but I do love it a lot. But it doesn't hold up as much. It might change soon, but this is my number 5. Was Magical Mystery Tour. Just a really like a good collection of songs. It is very backloaded. I would say that too, but it holds up so like so many of these songs hold up so well. As I said, I think it is backloaded more than anything else. So, but outside of like the title track and "Fool on the Hill," that's and "I Am the Walrus" to an extent. So, but that's me. But yeah, so there's Magical Mystery Tour. Mike, you love this record so much. It's your number one.
Well, that's the thing. I was kind of chatting with boys here before the show, and originally I wasn't going to include this because it contains a lot of songs that were singles, not part of an album. And I think the whole point of this is so think about it like this. If you're gonna write an album in one sitting or with a whole theme, it takes a lot of um writing power. It takes a lot of kind of focus and overall just connection amongst the band to really kind of put out something like that. So in a lot of ways, this was like an unfair kind of album to add to this list, but um, there's so many songs that I really love on this album uh, that like it feels like that second side is almost just like a bunch of songs, that are great songs by them that I really love. So um, while my ranking might be seem out of place, definitely if you were to remake a list and make it only albums that were written in one shot that were all supposed to be on an album together, it might be different. But we'll just kind of run down here. It starts off with a nice opener, definitely kind of creates a certain kind of energy feeling to it, like here it comes, and then Fool on the Hill, it's okay. It's just nothing really to be excited about, but it's okay. Flying's an instrumental, but then it kind of come down to where we start a big run here. Blue Jay Way, it's cool. It has a good vibe to it. I appreciate it. Your Mother Should Know. I like this song. It's just kind of a classic Beatles sound. I Am the Walrus is a great song. As much as it's bizarre, strange. I just got a cool feel to it. And it just kind of reminds me of like that weird Beatles that actually is catchy. Hello Goodbye, great song. I mean, Strawberry Fields Forever, Penny Lane, Baby You're a Rich Man. I love Baby You're a Rich Man. That's just got such a cool kind of like um she's got like a 70s feel to it, even though this is in the 67. A lot of the Beatles were ahead of their time. All You Need Is Love, great song. I mean, the whole end feels like a compilation more so than it does an album. So I mean, overall, throughout it all, it was like one of those kinds of albums that just kind of kept me, like I would come back to this many, many times. Just because it's got all the songs you want to hear on it, and it's even got some good opener and just kind of some nice instrumentals and feelings to it. So yeah, this is number 2 on my list. Shocker, boom.
What?
And while I said if you were to remake the list and you were to include only albums that were that were written for an album that weren't taken from singles, which the whole second side is singles, it might be put down the list as kind of not part of a thematic uh you know one single album uh construction. It definitely has those that unfair advantage where I feel like you wouldn't make that high up on the list. So yeah, just because of that, 2 out of the list. There you go.
Wow, big words from Mike.
Kyle's not going
Oh
to be a
boy.
fan.
Well, so I guess I'll be that guy. I'll be devil's advocate.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't like this album very much. I think that this continues that psychedelic sound on a lot of songs from Sgt. Pepper's, but nowhere near as well done, I thought, with the exception of I'm the Walrus, which is a top tier Beatles song. Absolutely fantastic. I was kind of worried going into it to see if it would hold up from when I was younger, and can confirm this song holds up perfectly fine. But I think that the trippy aspects just don't work as well in this one. And Mike, it was bound to happen in this series where I completely disagree. When you said here's where the run starts, and you mentioned Blue Jay Way, that is my least favorite song on here. Uh, I felt like they took the kind of trippy parts up too far. I just didn't like this. Completely agree. It's backloaded, but and JT says it. All You Need Is Love is arguably one of the greatest songs ever written. I'll be the arguer here. Uh, I can't stand All You Need Is Love. I've never liked it. I've always thought this is one of the worst popular songs of all time. I've never understood the appeal of it. It's lame. It's repetitive. I'm shocked Mike likes it because it's one of the most repetitive, annoying songs. I also don't like the hippiness of it. Of all you need is love. Yeah, we get it. All right, it's
JT,
fine.
you want to flash his address across the screen if you
Yeah,
want. Just
everyone
flash it like
get the doxing going right now. But
the crawl. Do a
I mean,
crawl so
outside
people
of that,
can,
"Hello Goodbye,"
Hmm.
fantastic song. The rest of them I could pretty much take or leave. Magical Mystery Tour, fantastic track as well. I mean, for me, this sits all the way down at number 10. It doesn't feel,
Woo!
and whereas it worked in its favor for Mike, for me, who's not a big fan of the songs that are displayed here, the incohesiveness and unfocused nature of the album worked against it in my case. Whereas it with Mike, he's like, yeah, it kind of feels like a greatest hits album. You can go listen to it like it's just a bunch of good songs on one. To me, who only likes about a quarter of the songs on here, it doesn't feel cohesive when I was listening to it, especially when you get from side one to side two. It's very like jarring. It's like, all right, well, side one's very much trippy, psychedelic, experimental. Then you get to side two, and it's like, oh, kind of more classic Beatles sound. So for me, it goes all the way down to number 10.
Wow.
Ouch. Tell us
Yikes.
how you really feel.
Well,
We're
we could do a whole episode on how much I hate All You Need Is Love, but
we're gonna go to Google Maps right now, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We're gonna flash
Yeah.
his address. You can go find him there. No, I'm just kidding. No.
Someone put him on suicide watch. No, I'm just kidding.
Mike, we don't want the FCC coming after us.
demonetized.
Instantly
Demonetized,
demonetized. Yeah, it
I
took
think what
like
Mike
8
meant
years.
was unalive watch.
On a live
I don't know.
watch. Exactly. So, all right, but nonetheless, let's go over to the next album, the White Album, the Beatles, the White Album, 1968, November 22nd, 1968. The famous Beatles White Album came out, and I would make the argument that they're like some of the most, some genres of music kind of spun out from this record too. Like, I mean, I'll get to the track listing in a second. There's a lot of tracks on here as well. There are some things that I really enjoyed about this record. There are some things I did not quite enjoy about this record as much as I used to. I will say that, but there are some really solid, just incredible, like just great tracks overall on here. And I'm going to get down to it right here. So let's start off with, with the original release of side one, which was Back in the USSR, which is a spin on Chuck Berry's Back in the USA. Yes, they did it. Beatles did it first, or second, I should say. Dear Prudence. It's funny because I remember having this conversation with someone at one point. Like they said, "What's that? What's that noise at the beginning of Dear Prudence?" And I'm like, "It's the ending of Back in the USSR." Did you not get that? And they're like, "Oh, that's what that is." Like because the way they cut it on the record or whatever. Glass Onion. Obla Di Obla Da, just a fun song, man. Wild Punny High, Wild Honey, yeah, Wild Honey. I wasn't Wild Pie Honey. Sorry, Wild Honey Pie. You know, it's fun. Um, it's funny actually. The consort. This is where Yoko Ono enters the picture apparently, with the continuing story of Buffalo Bill, Bungalow Bill. It's not Buffalo Bill. Sorry, saying the wrong thing. I'm hungry. While My Guitar Gently Weeps, which is George Harrison, wrote it, of course. One of my favorite songs of his, truthfully. Happiness is a Warm Gun. Side two, we go to Martha, My Dear. I'm So Tired. Blackbird. It's funny. Blackbird's just like, I'll get to that in a second. Piggies, Rocky Raccoon. Don't Pass Me By, which is Ringo Starr track. Why Don't We Do It in the Road? I Will, Julia. That's in side 2. It's funny. Side 3 has Birthday on it. Birthday is just pure fun. It's just pure fun. Year Blues, Mother Nature's Son. Everybody's got something to hide except me and my monkey. Long title, stupid title, whatever. Thanks, John Lennon. Sexy Sadie and Helter Skelter. I'll get to Helter Skelter in a second. Long with George Harrison. Revolution 1. Honey Pie, Savory Truffle, Cry Baby Cry, Revolution 9, and Good Night. Which is a Ringo Starr song. Song. That's a mouthful. This is only the Beatles' only album that had the double vinyl. That was it. This is the double vinyl of their career. And this is when they just started writing a lot of songs. So I'm just going to list off my standout tracks, which a lot of them are on here. Some of my favorite Beatles songs in general on here. Back in the USSR is just a banger. It opens up the album. I did hear it live as well. Obla Di Obla Da, just a fun song. It's like the piano intro just kicks in like do 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 do. Obla Di Obla Da, life goes on. Yeah, don't sue us. While My Guitar Gently Weeps, it's funny actually that the guitar solo, actually Eric Clapton's on the track. I don't know if you guys knew that. He's one of the guitarists on the track actually. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. That's one of my favorites. Blackbird, I've heard it live twice. It's a beautiful song. It's like at the time, it's like the civil rights at the time. Like McCartney's touching on that, I guess. Blackbird fly, take these broken wings and learn to be free. If you haven't looked up the in depth of that song, it's actually really beautiful. What is the other one? I can't think of it. There it is. Birthday. Yes, on my birthday, I have played that song all day. It's just true. They say it's your birthday. Nah. It's my birthday too. Yeah. It's just a great song. Just a great song. Helter Skelter, man. Yeah, it's funny. Helter Skelter, I would say, make the argument that the Beatles were one of the creators of heavy metal. Dare I say those words, but if you really think about it, like Led Zeppelin came out in 69 with their first album. That was really heavy too, like heavy blues influence and whatnot. But like the story behind Helter Skelter, I just want to share it for a second since we're talking about it. Like Helter Skelter, it's funny. Helter Skelter came about because apparently the story goes that McCartney heard a song by The Who. And The Who were releasing a song called, and in the magazine there, when they were promoting the song, Pete Townshend's like, it's the most dirtiest, super hard-hitting track out that we've ever put out. And McCartney's like, oh, we better top that. And they made Helter Skelter. And Helter Skelter kills live. I've seen it live twice. It is just I would make the argument it's like early heavy metal, because nothing really existed like that beforehand. I mean, there may have been like a heavy track here, a heavy track there, but this is where like heavy really came into play, in my opinion. But Helter Skelter is just one of those tracks, just rips, and it kills on that track, on this album. So, and then we get to the side 4 is kind of forgettable. Revolution 9 is one of the most annoying things I've ever heard. I'm sorry. I know there's some fans that actually like Revolution 9, but Revolution 9 is just a disaster. It's just so much. There's so much going on in this. It's 8 minutes of just, in my opinion. So need I say more on that? But and Good Night, it's a good closer. But this obviously is their longest record. It's got the most songs on the record too, on any of their albums. Why Don't We Do the Road's a fun track too. I forgot about that one. But yeah, that's kind of like, those are my standout tracks for the Beatles' White Album. I do have an original pressing of it as well in my vinyl collection, and I love it. I love this record quite a bit. This record, to me, let me go back to my list for a second here. This is my number 3. My number 3 album for the Beatles is actually the Beatles' White Album, and because the good songs that I remember the most from it, like Back in the USSR, Dear Prudence, Obla Di Obla Da, Why Don't We Do on the Road, Blackbird, Birthday, Helter Skelter. Yeah, these songs shine the most, but the other songs on the record too actually shine a lot too, but like not as much as the other ones the previous ones I just mentioned, but they do they do shine a lot. Like I will say, there is a lot of really good. If you're looking for deep cuts on a record, listen to the Beatles' White Album. There are some really great songs that just were not hits. Like you look at like Piggies or like Rocky Raccoon, or even like Sexy Sadie, or Year Blues. There are some really good songs on here too that you just don't get the light of day, unfortunately. Like whether it be like live performances by Ringo or Paul, or just in general. There's some really good songs on here just in general. Like Don't Pass Me By is a great song, and everyone kind of forgets about it. So, but that's just me. So, but yeah, this is my number three, actually. The Beatles' White Album is my number three on the Beatles career discography breakdown and album ranking, part two. But Mike, obviously, this is his number three. We're swiping right. I'm calling it right now. No, what do you got, Mike? What do you got?
Swiping right. Oh, well, this album could be an example of more is less, in a lot of filler and things that they did in it that just kind of um weren't needed. It's got some great songs on it. I mean, the whole opening, like I kind of like JT, what you were kind of saying about them kind of coming off like have some heavy vibes, and I mean, Glass Onion, Dear Prudence, things of that manner. You almost get a Ozzy vibe to some of these, back in the USSR. Like these early on tracks in this thing, you have these brooding kind of feel to them that as a kid growing up, I always thought the Beatles were like the hokey kind of the early 60s kind of stuff. Even like their original stuff was just very kind of like suits and very like straight laced, and then everything was about breakup, with a girl and this and that. But then like they kind of showed off their dynamics and their ability to bring in some other song, some lyrics and some other topics into play here. And it's got some iconic songs. And like I always tell you, I'm not giving you a ranking based on its importance to the music community and its iconicness to my life. Like, how many times did I hear that birthday song? How many times did I hear Blackbird, or some of these other songs on here? Oh, Lobby, whatever the
Oh,
almost looks like
yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. Life goes on. Like those were, I mean, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, I mean, freaking classic. It's got some real iconic songs, but then there's just so much stuff on here that just should have been cut by the wayside. And it because of that, it kind of takes you out of the consistency. And anything including Yoko Ono should never see the light of day. I'm sorry, but it just needs to be cut immediately. But it really is an iconic album. It's just it's got some filler on it, too much filler, and it does hurt the but in my rankings I had Help just a little above this album. So for me it was number 6. Just out of that, just out of the Sergeant Pepper Lonely Hearts, kind of taking the 5 there. But just on the outskirts, it's still got iconic tracks. It's still important to music, and it's still like a good example of how the Beatles could do everything, and then just weren't easy to pin down. I think that in today's music suffers greatly. Bands just, one song has a similar sound to the other, and the Beatles were able just to really just um get the whole the dynamics and the just being different on a lot of different tracks that really just surprised you that they could pull that off and like be heavy when they needed to be. So yeah.
All right, you're here first. That's Mike's ranking. What do you got, Kyle? What do you got for the White Album?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, this does go more into, I don't want to go all the way to metal as a genre per se, but definitely more hard rock aspects, like early hard rock leaning. Less in times of that psychedelic style, which I appreciate. We're kind of getting away from that. If I took the best songs from this album and made one album, it would be the definitive best Beatles album, period. But having said that, when you have an album this long, they're not all going to be winners, and they sure aren't. I mean, while you have great songs like Back in the USSR, Obla Di Obla Da, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, which is the one George Harrison song that I think is absolutely incredible, flawless song. Uh, Birthday, Helter Skelter, Revolution 1, which the single version of Revolution, that's even more hard rock oriented, I think is the better version, best version of this. But this also has some of their worst songs they've ever done. I mean, things like uh, one Revolution 9, why this ever made the cut for an 8-minute waste of space on at the time a vinyl record, beyond me, absolutely beyond me. Don't know who listened back to this and said, good idea, guys, everyone wants to hear this. So I mean, between that, Mother Nature's Son is awful. Lennon at some of his worst. Or no, sorry, McCartney's the lead vocal on that. Probably one of the worst McCartney songs in that vein. Then long, 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 terrible. I mean, Wild Honey Pie. It has such good songs on it, but I feel like it didn't have someone there to tell them stop. Rein it in. You don't have to do this. Not everything you write is gold. Sometimes you just put crap out. I mean, Piggies coming off Blackbird on the track list, terrible. Having said that, the good songs on here really do a lot of heavy lifting. It puts it at number 4 for me. Because at the end of the day, if I just make a playlist with all the great songs from here, it works. And luckily, a lot of the bad songs are relatively short, with the exception of Revolution 9. Also, props to Paul McCartney for putting out that Why Don't We Do It in the Road song. Great song. Absolutely fantastic. Also love Rocky Raccoon. There's some like lesser, got things falling all over my kitchen apparently.
I think
got a bunch of,
that they heard your ranking and they were like,
yeah.
what's that?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of like lesser known songs on here that are really good. So I mean, for me, number 4.
All right, you're here first, ladies and gents, ladies and germs, children of all ages. Now we're gonna jump to their next album, which was Yellow Submarine, which we are touching on. Yes. This was the soundtrack to the movie Yellow Submarine. It came out in January of 1969. It is it's funny. It's not like it's how to explain this and from my it's not a bad album. It's just not necessarily my favorite one because there's some good stuff on. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's iconic. It's very iconic because of the movie and stuff like that, because of the score and everything. But this one is just like it doesn't, out of all the Beatles albums, it just doesn't like hold a candle to to what came before and what came afterwards. In my opinion, it's kind of just there, if you know what I mean. It's nothing bad, of course, because there's the Beatles early records. You can go back and listen to it there, but we touched on those last week. There's some bad songs on those, but if you listen to like this record, it's not bad. It's just kind of forgettable, truthfully. Let me go down to the track listing for a second here. If I can find it. It's like I said, it's not. It's kind of like a compilation of just like I don't know. It's kind of just a compilation of like their best stuff together. The only original one on here I believe is Hey Bulldog, if I'm not mistaken. That's kind of like its own track. There's I don't know. I can't really say too much on it because it's just not like it doesn't hold a candle for me as much as like the other their albums before or afterward do. So for me, I mean, yes, you have Yellow Submarine. Yes, you have Only a Northern Song all together now. Hey Bulldog's great. It's all too much, and all you need is love. You know, Kyle's favorite song of all time. Just kidding, bro. It's okay. No, it's very forgettable. Sometimes I forget that this album even exists. For lack of a better word, I always went from like the White Album to Abbey Road. I forgot like this album exists sometimes. It's unfortunate, but it's kind of how it is. So, But nonetheless, though, I had to put this number 13. Unfortunately, guys, I'm sorry. Hate to be that guy. It's just there. It's kind of just there, truthfully. Not saying it's a bad record because there's no outside of like their earlier stuff. Like there's not too many Beatles albums that I don't like. But it's just forgettable. Like, I mean, outside of Hey Bulldog and like more repeated stuff like Yellow Submarine or All You Need Is Love, it's just not. It doesn't do it for me as much as I thought it would. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. I had to put it number 13 for that reason. So, anyways, Mike, what do you got for Yellow Submarine?
Yeah, wasn't Yellow Submarine part of another album, or was that just I might have
The song was a
uh,
part of Revolver.
So was
okay,
all you
so
need
it's
and all you need is love was on
Magical Mystery Tour.
Magical Mystery Tour. Yep.
okay, weird. Um, so yeah, this is just it's just a prime example of an album that just suffers from obviously orchestral film score that you kind of have to be into in order to enjoy, as well as some songs on the beginning. Once again, Yellow Submarine is just one of those gimmicky tracks that you use to gain a feeling, not necessarily to start off things on a certain kind of note. You don't ever start in that. You come into the Yellow Submarine as kind of like a create a kind of a feeling and whatnot, and like a strange element. There's just not much on here to really take away. It really is the prime example of kind of including something that you use from some TV or something, and then just having other songs that you've released. Yeah, so this was not much to say about it. None of the songs really. All You Need Is Love, obviously, is a very awesome song, but like it's just pretty much like forgettable and just yeah, like JT was saying, as just musically driven and creative, and like at the time, and I think that's something none of us here. I'm 40. None of us could say we witnessed these albums coming out at the time of inception of the music. None of us could say, have you ever listened to something and you were so blown away because it never had been done? Yeah, I can, but not too many times in my life could I witness musical greatness, originality at its absolute freshness to some of the stuff that the Beatles were doing. So like we lacked that ability to like capture it, captured the feeling and kind of blew our minds. And when you don't have that happening and you're listening to it after the fact, it definitely you have less appreciation for it, and more critical kind of nitpicks about it. So like that's something you can't erase from our opinions and our kind of how we received it. So while I say it's number 13, and by all means does not take away from like the true like musical musicality of the whole thing and the creativeness. So yeah, it's just it's one of those things that just doesn't hold a candle to the rest of their the mastery that is the Beatles songwriting, uh you know uh, stuff that they put out.
Yep. You heard it here first. That's what Mike thinks. So, Kyle, what do you think about Yellow Submarine?
So this was less of an album, more of so it was an album, but it was less of their choosing. This was a contractually obligated album for them to put out, which is why it includes, well, other than it being the title of the movie, Yellow Submarine, but also All You Need Is Love. So they only put a handful of new songs on here. Having said that, I pretty much agree with everything you said, other than All You Need Is Love being a good song. Other than that, uh,
Mm.
the only two highlights for me on here, Yellow Submarine, which is already an existing song, and Hey Bulldog. Everything else is pretty filler. I don't mind the film score being side two. I don't mind it. With that said, this actually is not my last. I actually put this at number 11 for the sole purpose of I would rather listen to this album front to back than I would rather listen to With the Beatles or Beatles for Sale. As a full album that I would want to sit down and cohesively enjoy and actually put on, I would pick this over either of those two. So while it may not be the most original necessarily or the most innovative thing they've ever done, it's a nice thing to just throw on. It's nothing revolutionary. It was never meant to be. It's just kind of there for it was a forced contractually obligated thing and it really shows. So I mean, yeah, number 11 for me.
All right, you heard it here first. Let's jump over to their second to last album ever, with Abbey Road. Wow.
And technically the last album they ever recorded.
Yes, true. Absolutely. It came out September of 1969. This is there's so much I could say about this record. It's like it's kind of like it's hard to explain. Like I don't know. Like there's so I have this. This is one of the first vinyl I ever got, ever. Um, like I want because my vinyl collection started, and I got like a bunch of vinyl from a neighbor of mine. I got someone to a friend of mine and whatnot, and it just started from there. And this was in the box. It's an original pressing of Abbey Road with like tape on the cover and stuff like that. You know, I have it. Um, but my God, some of their best, I would say some of their strongest songs of their career are on this one. I mean, with look at the track listing really quick if I can pull it up here. Track listing. I mean, side one, Come Together and Something are in my top 25, 30 songs of all time. Hands down. Come Together is one of those songs that just like sticks out to me and my brain is like, I think it's like number 8 on my list of my favorite songs of all time. Just one of the first songs I ever heard and I've loved. Come Together is in my top 25 of all time. Something in the way she moves attracts me like no other lover. George Harrison pen track. But it is very, very a beautiful. Frank Sinatra said it best. It's a love song without saying the words "I love you" in the songs. You know what I mean? And something I've heard it live twice. Paul McCartney tells the story when he plays it live. He's like he starts it off on a ukulele that George Harrison actually gave him. So he has it on stage with him. And spoilers for if you've ever seen Paul McCartney. But he starts off on the ukulele because George Harrison he loved ukuleles, and he starts off the song on the ukulele, and then it goes into the full band, and then the band kicks in, then he goes back on the guitar. It's a really beautiful thing. But something in the way she moves attracts me like no other lover. It's a great song. It's a really good, really great. So one of my favorite songs of all time, truthfully, and it comes up so back to back right there. I'm in. Maxwell Silver Hammer, Oh Darling, Octopus's Garden. I Want You, She's So Heavy kind of like drags a little bit, in my opinion. It's not a bad song nonetheless, but I Want You Heavy, I Want You, She's So Heavy. It's a long song with only, I think they said like 27 words in it or something like that. It's like really a long song with like short amount of words in there. But yeah, it's nonetheless a really side one kills. And then we get to side two. One of the best side twos I've ever heard on record. With Here Comes the Sun, just a great, great song. The first Beatles song, mind you, to crack 1 billion streams on Spotify. And because, and then it gets into like the whole premise of the side two of You Never Gave Me Your Money, Sun King, was it Me, Mr. Mustard, Polythene Pam, all these little snippets and stuff like that. Like these are all songs that they never really finished, but George Martin, their producer, was like, "Hey, why don't we take these little snippets of songs and just put them as one big side two, and we'll use a sewing thread, and that sewing thread was an orchestra, and they orchestrated the whole thing from start to finish, starting with You Never Gave Me Your Money, and then it goes into Sun King, then it goes into Mean Mr. Mustard, Polythene Pam, She Came Through the Bathroom Window, Golden Slumbers, Carry the Weight, The End." Her Majesty is a hidden track, but it's it's the last like 23-second track, I guess you could say. But that suite of songs is just incredible. I love those. I really love that side two so much. It really showed how you can just take a bunch of songs, kind of like a Sergeant Pepper, and with a little help from my friends, like you can't listen to one without the other. You're gonna have a hard time telling me you can't listen to that whole side two by itself, outside of Here Comes the Sun, and Because. It's such a great, like, just great, just a great run of just a perfectly threaded, orchestration of songs right there. With you never gave me your money, Sun King, Me, Mr. Mustard, Polythene Pam, She Came Through the Bathroom Window, Golden Slumbers, Carry the Weight in the End. And it's funny, when I was first listening to it, I was like, oh my god. The first time I ever heard these songs, I was like, oh my god, these songs all go together, because I was so used to listening to track by track. And listening to it on vinyl, listening to it over the past week or so to prep for a part two of our stream, I got to that. I was like, man, I love that whole suite of just like the whole orchestration, how it just all flows, and it ends on Her Majesty with like that hidden track right there. But it ends on the end, I should say. So, but just a great suite of songs. So sitting at number 2 is Abbey Road. Abbey Road is my number 2 for the Beatles albums. You heard it. That is my number 2. It is just a really great set of songs. You got a couple Ringo songs. You got just some of the best songs of all time, in my opinion, with Something and Come Together. Here Comes the Sun, of course. And like this is where George Harrison kind of started like shining, I guess, more and more. But like, and that whole suite of songs at the end are just killer. So, but this is my number 2, right underneath Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. So yeah, that's my number 2. Mike, you love this album. You hate this record, right? Don't you hate this record?
Hate it. It's garbage. I use it as a frisbee. Vinyl frisbee. That'll be my next album. The vinyl frisbee of the Beatles. Abbey Road. No, I can't agree with you more, JT. This is the banger of the Beatles, universe. My personal love of their music comes in this album. Come Together, such a cool song, nonsensical lyrics, but also kind of just makes sense at times. I mean, Something, another amazing song. Maxwell Silverhammer, that's a strange, I mean, some real twisted kind of lyrics, like but definitely if you're a teacher, you're not happy with that track right there. So, um, you know, and then it just has just a bunch of cool sounding songs. I Want You. I think it's more of a feeling song. It's just
Mhm.
got such a cool is the key word here. It just has that real kind of stylistic feel to it, proving that the Beatles can really capture all the different styles of music that go into bluesy kind of laid back, put your sunglasses on and chill at the bar. You put this on and people just, it just kind of creates a vibe. Here Comes the Sun. I mean, it's just another iconic song, great song. Just makes you feel like you're like the sun is rising. You know what I mean? And then it's just like what you said, JT, definitely rung true. That whole run, all the vocal harmonies, the almost has a folky kind of like, I wouldn't say Beach Boysian, but I would say like the whole vocal harmonies they're creating and the quiet but like melodic nature of these songs are just great. She came in through the window. That's just a cool song. Overall, there's really nothing done wrong on this. It really isn't. Whereas like you have your iconic songs, you have your, Hey Jude, and you have your your I Want to Hold Your Hand, and all those like iconic songs. This album is just packed full of those, as well as just cool melodic, and it's just nothing weird, no like harpsichords or like like sitars or satire, as JT said. But yeah. uh
Thanks.
Overall, you're welcome. I had to put you on blast with that, JT. You're welcome. I'll see you at the potluck. But anyway, it's just a great piece of music, and it just the iconic nature of it is just it's definitely just one that I really appreciate, and I know Kyle just absolutely loved this, so I can't wait to let him have it. Number 1, there it is, Abbey Road.
Whoa. All right. My number 2, Mike's number 1. Kyle, where does
Ah,
Abbey Road? What do you got?
Well,
Kyle, can you do this
what
one
I
as a
got.
cow? Yeah, I would actually
Yeah, I
appreciate
sure
it.
can. I
Yeah,
sure can.
yeah.
Hold
Just
on.
turn into a cow. Yeah, just go ahead and yeah. I just prefer
Gotcha.
you
I
do this
gotcha.
review in the right
I
you
have to
know.
do it in the right state of mind.
Yeah, I do the
For
resume.
those of you watch us live, get ready.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, listen with cow like perception. There you go. And
Cow perception.
Apparently, I'm somehow not signed into
there's
Zoom, so it's
technical
not going to
difficulties,
let
folks. We're
anyone
sorry about this. I
Oh,
kind of caught him
okay.
off. I caught him off guard. So
We'll do it
Caught
live.
me off guard. Caught me off guard. Give me a
yeah.
sec. I'll start talking in
Do
the
it
meantime, though.
do it in post. Do it in post.
In
Do it
post.
in
Uh,
post. Do it in post.
Well, wait, we got it. Hold on. It changed the background for some reason.
that is wild. Yo, we're doing some psychedelic off-road spoken word association
Here
cow
we go. There we go.
cow utters.
There we go.
Oh
And
man.
hold on, let me just change my background back.
Yeah,
Anyway, now
please.
that the cow is back,
The cow is back.
Cowl.
I don't know what
Before
this
you utter
is
another
the right
sentence, it
one.
better be Abbey Road is awesome.
There we
Get
go.
it?
That's
Utter anybody? Nobody? I'll be over
the
here.
words that I
Mike, but I'm
will
being
utter are as follows. I disagree. I agree that this is a great album until the song Because, and then I don't like most of what happens. Everything leading up to that point is so good to the point where tracks one, the entire side one, and Here Comes the Sun are some of the best things they've ever done. Maxwell Silver Hammer is a top 5 Beatles song for me. I don't care that 3/4 of the band can't stand this song. I think it's great. It's so funny. It's the most lighthearted song about murdering people you'll hear. Fantastic. I mean, Octopus's Garden, best Ringo song. So good, but so stupid. Even I Want You, She's So Heavy. I do agree it is a bit long, especially for a song that only has about 20 actual words to it.
yeah.
But the instrumental behind it's really good. I don't like the fact that the second half of the album, you can kind of tell that it is unfinished ideas. Specifically, the run from Sun King to Mean Mr. Mustard through Polythene Pam, and then she came in through the bathroom window. I don't like any of those ones. I skip them every single time. But other than that, because of how good the first half of the album is, this is number 2. I mean, it's an iconic album, has some of the most iconic songs ever written on it. And then I mentioned before that George Harrison had 2 songs that I thought were actually good. Something is the other one. I don't know what happened between the White Album and now in George Harrison's songwriting. Maybe he needed to get all the sitar like bullcrap out of here. But here we are. It's great. Iconic album. The reason that the second half doesn't really drag it down too much is that it's not long enough. Like the songs aren't long enough for me to be like, oh, this is like atrociously bad. Just things I don't care for. Also love that John Lennon is not as involved on this record. He got, he always had some of my least favorite stuff too. And yep, I mean, number 2. It's a great album, great listen all the way through.
All right.
The
We're
cow has
good.
spoken.
The cow has spoken. You heard it here first. For those of you watch this live, good for you. Let's get into their last album.
Yeah. Here we go.
Let it be, man. Let it be. Just let it be, for Christ's sake, as they say sometimes. Man, this is it kind of gets you emotional a little bit, like knowing that this is their last album, but at the same time, they were gonna break up anyways because money was doing it. Like Desire to Do Other Things was doing it. Like Paul McCartney was like, Paul McCartney already released his first
Yoko
solo
Ono
record.
was doing it.
What's that?
Yoko Ono was doing it. That was the reason. Let's be real.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
who knew Apple had their own studio at the time, or Apple Computers. I'm just kidding. Not Apple.
we're getting off the
Just kidding.
bandwagon here.
Cancel that. Cancel that.
Apple, you can sponsor us by emailing us at the superreviewshow@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Please sponsor us. Pay us money to do this. But nonetheless, though, no, it's not a bad record. It's just it has some of my favorite songs of their whole catalog on here, but just like but only like a handful of them. Like it was released May 8th, 1970. What a time to be alive, too. 1970. Ooh. Well, we weren't alive, but some people were. Um, um, it's just, it's kind of like it's a goodbye at the same time, you know, and it's emotional for me to listen to it sometimes. Like if I go to like just listening to like stuff like Two of Us, Dig a Pony, Across the Universe is actually really good. Across the Universe is a really great song. Let It Be.
I actually kind of wish I knew what the Beatles would have sounded like in the 80s, like if they were still a band. And like, like
Yep.
everybody was affected by change in music the same. If you look at ELO, they had their very kind of like Beatles feel to them. They're more like Billy Rock stuff in the, early on. And then when disco hit, boom, like they started putting disco in like more heavy in their albums. And then they kind of, when the 80s came, they got to some more like keyboard and electronic feel to their music. Whereas like I kind of wish that we had like a Beatles album to see how they would change with like this is 70, but like when disco hit, at its height, could we hear a disco Beatles album? Could we hear like an 80s
Synth.
like electronic? It would be just I wish I could hear that, see what that would sound like, it'd be interesting.
Mike wants the 80s Beatles album. I want the 90s grunge era Beatles album.
That would be crazy.
McCartney just doing
crazy.
Pearl Jam references left and right. Oh God, it's a travesty. No, let me go with the track listing one more time. Sorry, Two of Us, Dig a Pony, Across the Universe, I Me Mine, Dig It, Let It Be, Maggie May, which I guess it's a traditional cover, but it was arranged by them. I've Got a Feeling, great song. One After 909. I actually play this at 9:10 in the morning sometimes. Just because it's One After 909. Sorry. The Long and Winding Road is a great song. For You Blue, it's good. And then Get Back. Get Back is great. Okay, let me just start by saying I love Get Back. It's like Get Back. Okay, I can almost see like this might sound it's crazy, but I can see like Mick Jagger dancing to that for some reason. Like, Get Back. I don't know. Whatever. That's the point though. That's really bad reference. But you have like it's funny. It's not my favorite because there are great songs on here. Don't get me wrong. Across the Universe, I think is a great song. Let It Be is a 10 out of 10 completely on this. It's just a beautiful, written, fantastic song. I've Got a Feeling. And The Long and Winding Road's always got a nice like feel to it. It hits home to an extent. And then Get Back is Get Back. So but the other stuff on here, like Two of Us, Dig a Pony, Dig It. You have two songs with the same word in it with dig. I mean, like, come on, let's be real. Like do we need dig? We need the word dig twice. Put the word dig twice in the same record, of course. For You Blue, it's not terrible. One Friend on it's a good track, but you could kind of tell this is like we're approaching the end of what we know as the Beatles, and we're gonna branch off like McCartney's gonna go solo, Plastic Ono Band with John Lennon, George Harrison, Ringo Starr, they all like, bounce off and have their own careers, in the music business, of course. But I will say this though, as great. Kyle already knows where I'm going with this because I think there's only one spot left, but this is my number 9 because as great it's unfortunate, and I hate saying those words because it's not a bad record. It's just I just like the other ones more. I like obviously Sgt. Pepper more, the White Album, Abbey Road, Revolver, like the Rubber Soul and Hard Day's Night and Help a lot more than Let It Be. That's no diss to the song Let It Be. That's no diss to Get Back. That's no diss to I've Got a Feeling or Across the Universe. It's just the other songs on this record don't really hold up much to it outside of just like being there for nonetheless, like For You Blue and like, the Maggie May cover. And like, I can do without that, but that's just me. That is my number 9. Let It Be. I have it on vinyl. I actually got it recently too. I listen to like, I kind of skip over like some of the cuts too because I'm like, I don't want to listen to Maggie May. If I'm going to listen to Maggie May, I'm listening to the Rod Stewart version. Okay. Like, let me be honest with you guys. So, yeah, that's my number 9 is Let It Be. Mike, you hated this record, didn't you?
Not far off. um, yeah, it's one of those albums. I'll be on, and kind of like going along with Kyle with All You Need Is Love. I really am not a fan of Across the Universe, to be honest with you. I know that
Okay.
that's probably not a popular opinion. Those first 3 songs, you know,
Yep.
they don't do anything for me. You kind of go in through here, I Me Mine, and Dig It. You know, yeah. Let It Be. I mean, Let It Be is a an absolute bombshell. I'd say top 3 song for me. The Beatles. Right up there. Hey Jude and around there. Maggie May. I mean, that's I don't mind it. I actually like that song, and uh, while it's not anything, you know, fantastic, it's still an enjoyable tune. And I appreciate the in their style. And then after that, it's just like I was saying, it's a forgettable back end, with very small amounts of kind of highlight to it. Long winding roads, decent. Um, yeah, so it's just overall, I just yeah, like I said, JT's kind of saying it's still the Beatles doing it and it's still good music. It's just there's a lot less to be excited about on this one. So this was an 11 out of the of their catalog. Just not much on here that really stays with you and can make it on the playlist of the best of
Kyle, what do you got?
ah. Oh, he's a dog now.
Woof woof.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
changing it up again.
Change it up.
So I guess I like this one a little bit more than you guys.
Ah.
Uh, I guess I'm one of the few people also that likes Dig a Pony. That song I think is really good. 2 of us, I agree, not too into that intro. Also agree with Mike on this. Across the Universe, not a good song. Never got the hype for that one. The rest of it, I mean, I Me Mine, it's all right. Not one of the worst George Harrison led songs. Dig It, one of the worst on here. Totally agree. But Let It Be. I mean, come on. Top 5, if not top 3 Beatles song there. Absolutely incredible. Maggie May, I don't mind it. It's pretty good. I've Got a Feeling. Uh, pretty sure it's a Black Eyed Peas song. Leave it at that.
Yeah, there you go.
One After 909. It's there. The Long and Winding Road, though. I love this song. I think it's one of the top 3 on here. Then Get Back is an interesting closer. I don't think I would have closed the album. So to me, I think what this album suffers a bit from is it's not structured well. Like I don't think it's structured with a good intro and a good closing on it. Like Get Back is not. I would maybe even Get Back as the intro to the album instead of the closer. It's a weird closer, and I think maybe even Let It Be would have been a good closer for this. I feel like that would have really just kind of end capped their career. And yeah, I gotta point out how bad For You Blue is. Terrible song. A shame that it's the second to last song. But I mean, for me, this one's at 5. I think it's a pretty solid album. I enjoy it. I would go back to this more often than I would some of their older, original albums as a whole.
All righty. Well, you heard it here first. That is our career discography breakdown of the Beatles. Yes, Mike, I did that. You're welcome.
I think you're the only person in all the rankings who ever given that album that high. That's impressive, man. I
I don't know.
appreciate you, man. That's take some balls to do that, man.
Yeah. Let me
Ooh,
stop sharing my screen so Kyle, so
I don't want
the dog can share his screen. Hold on one sec. Come on, puppy.
puppy.
There you
I
go.
want to say ball and throw the ball and you go for it.
So
Yeah,
the
there you go.
only the only things that any of us had in common was me and JT's number ones, both being Sergeant Pepper's, and JT and Mike's 13s being Yellow Submarine.
Wow.
So I mean, I'll start with
Wow.
mine from worst to best. We had Beatles for Sale, With the Beatles, Yellow Submarine, Magical Mystery Tour, Help, Please Please Me, Revolver, Hard Day's Night, Let It Be, White Album, Rubber Soul, Abbey Road, Sergeant Pepper's. JT, you want to take yours?
Sure. From 13 to 1 goes like this: Yellow Submarine, Please Please Me, With the Beatles, Beatles for Sale, Let It Be, Help, A Hard Day's Night, Rubber Soul, Magical Mystery Tour, Revolver, The White Album, Abbey Road, and Sergeant Pepper at number 1. Mike, go from the
All
bottom
right.
to the top.
All right. So for 13, Yellow Submarine. 12, Beatles for Sale. Number 11, That Let It Be, followed by number 10, Revolver. Sorry, folks, if you're listening and you're upset, um, send it to Kyle. Number 9, With the Beatles. At number 8, Rubber Soul. Number 7, Please Please Me. Number 6, The White Album. Number 5, Sergeant Pepper's. Number 4, Help. Rounding out the top 3. Number 3, Hard Day's Night. Number 2, The Magical Mystery Tour. And at our number 1, Abbey Road.
All righty. Well, you heard your first, guys. That's our career discography breakdown of the Beatles catalog from to celebrate 60 years of the Beatles coming over to the United States. The reason why we did this whole thing in the first was because on February 7th, 2024, marked 60 years since these four guys from Liverpool, sorry to all of our UK listeners, came over here and started a whole Beatlemania trend over here. So yeah, that's gonna do it for us, guys. If you want to stop sharing your screen for a sec there, I'll be able to close this out. Thank you. Well, I want to thank you all. We want to thank you all for watching, listening, however you enjoyed us tonight. Thanks so much for the dog and the cat and the cow part coming out there, Kyle. That was great.
Yeah.
Mike and Mike's insight, as always, is unparalleled, and I appreciate both of you very much and what you do every day. Thank you so much. That's gonna do it for us, guys. Thanks so much for watching, listening, however you enjoy us tonight. If you love the Beatles,
Hey,
great. And
stay, stay. Oh, sorry.
what's that, Mike? I was about to say. I'm gonna flash Mike's and trash up in about 2 seconds so they can go find him because of his Revolver rating. There we go. So no, I'm just kidding. But needless to say that we all this is a fun one to do. It's our first two-parter, showing that we can do it a long career discography breakdown, of course.
And what's our next one up? It's Mr. Mick
Our
Mars.
next one is Mick Mars, right, Kyle? Yep, thank you.
His new solo album.
Mick Mars' solo album. That's gonna be next week, and I'm gonna talk to my lads about that in a second. So, but for all of us here at the Super Review Shows, thanks so much for watching, listening. Stay safe. Kate, take care, and